guys know TOK? Just to kind of review the aims of the DB core. Something to think about students and teachers is like the IB core is only at most 3 bonus points. So why are we doing this big exhibition and getting everyone here? Well, because the IB core, TOK, CAS, and EE is actually what makes DP different from others. Okay, one of the main things. Okay, so because it's supposed to foster international mindedness, make you guys better global citizens, have you become more self-aware of your own perspectives, develop the IB learner profile, and also have more integration between your different academic studies. So if you look at, this is actually from the TOK guide. So that's why the IB core, CAS, EE, TOK is so important. So for today's exhibition, these are objectives. So hopefully, as teachers and students interact with you guys, they can know, you have the opportunity to show what you have learned in TOK, and then teachers can connect their TOK with their disciplines, and then we continue to promote the TOK culture in Kwaisan. All right. So here's basically the agenda. You can go around, teachers. You can just go around. There's no time limit. Okay. And then basic layout. Michael's layout is basic English class is here. All right. And then the Chinese class is in the music room. All right. So the grade 10 students, I think we already communicated. They should be outside already. Grade 10 students, you should get your QR code, be able to fill out the survey, and come and ask these grade 11 学姐学长 about these 4 questions, okay? About their TOK exhibition, all right? And DP teachers, before you leave, please finish this survey as well. It's also been sent to you via email, all right? So without further ado, I'll let the DP exhibition begin.
All right, welcome to the TOK exhibition. Okay, so this is Kathy. Kathy, why don't you tell us about your prompt and your objects?
My prompt is, how does the way that we organize or classify knowledge affect what we know? And I answered the question with these 3 different objects. And my first object is Grammy's urban category. So and this category was actually created as a middle ground for artists who do experimental R&B. However, although not stated in the category, the word urban actually means music made by Black artists, regardless of genre. And the naming of this musical knowledge actually limits the audience expectations and creates stereotypes and unbalanced representation within the music industry. And my second object is this Japanese hotel built in Taipei, and it's not hotel, it's a department store, and it was the first department store built in Taiwan. And the Taipei city government classified it as historical building rather than a monument, which means that according to the Cultural Heritage Preservation Act, the building is actually not under the government's complete protection. So with this classification, it means that the building will not be utilized for the public audience direct access, so they cannot actually experience the history of this first department store in Taipei. And also, it's actually prohibited from potential research and investigation. And it's being used privately. And my third object is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorder, and it's a handbook published for official definitions and diagnosis of mental illness. And this edition, updated in May 2013, actually redefine gender identity disorder into gender dysphoria, which means that they're no longer treating this diagnosis as treating the patient's gender identification as a disease, but rather focusing on the distress caused by their dissatisfaction with their gender. So this, on one hand, it contributes to the normalization and acceptance of transgender people, and also shifts the concept of gender from the traditional binary model, but also for gender confirmation surgeries, because the disease is the diagnosis is no longer treated as a disease. So those like related surgeries will be treated like cosmetic treatments rather than necessary medical treatments. So therefore, health insurance providers will not want to pay for those kind of treatments. So it shows how like disorders are classified affects the public's understanding of diseases and also whether patients receive benefits or like protection.
All right. So now we have Timothy here, and Timothy, why don't you tell us about your prompt?
So my prompt is how the context in which knowledge is presented influence whether it is accepted or rejected.
Okay, so I see your first object here, abstract painting by Ad Reinhardt. What's this?
So abstract painting by Ad Reinhardt is basically a form of artistic knowledge that has been accepted because of its contextual meaning that is appeared in the art form. So the art form is not generally accepted, but however the contextual meaning behind the artwork is accepted because of Ad Reinhardt's interpretation of his own artwork.
Okay. All right. What is your second object here?
It's the 3 essays of the theory of sexuality by Sigmund Freud, published in 1901. So the theory of sexuality by Sigmund Freud is been rejected. He has been accepted in the first place under the late Victorian era because that era he has been like the mainstream human science knowledge on sexuality studies. However, it has been later been rejected in the 21st century because the gender equality wasn't yet developed in that period of time. So right now it is more progressive. But people kind of consider what the sexuality of both feminine and also masculinity in a both place. So, and the thing is about the human science knowledge has been rejected because the social context is different and it's changing right now.
Okay, and your third object is a speech by Lysenko?
Yeah, so the speech by Lysenko is the genetics in Soviet Union. So this entire this object of the speech is actually embedded with the idea of Lysenkoism, which is saying that inheritance of wheat is through physical transformation instead of interbreeding and segregation according to Mendel's law. So this entire object is based on the context of the Soviet agricultural crisis in the late 1930s, and the length of this object is being rejected because of the idea of Mendelism. Because as Lysenko actually criticized the Mendel's idea as a border science and idealist and non-practical, so the entire study of Mendelism has been rejected because the context was under the political authority. So it was being rejected because Lysenko actually aligned his policy with the political authority, but that rejected the importance of genetics. Yeah.
Okay.
Hi.
All right. Here you have Jocelyn, and Jocelyn, why don't you tell me about your prompt?
So my prompt is about the constraint of pursuing knowledge. So my first object is the ape and the child experiment. So basically this experiment was conducted in 1931. A guy called Kellogg, he is an animal psychiatrist and he's very interested in proving whether or not an ape could be raised along a child and whether or not the ape will act like the child. So there's this experiment was set to last about 5 years. However, they stopped after 6 months because they realized there's a lot of ethical issues regarding to this experiment. First of all, informed consent. The kid cannot give consent and the parents are supposed to give consent for the kid. But however, there's a conflict of interest since the parent is the conductor of the experiment. So they may be thinking about what's best for the experiment and not what's best for the kid. And then there's also some detrimental psychological and physical effect on the kid. For example, he started showing signs of regression. He can't really communicate with words. He started biting other people and acting like the ape. And lastly, there's involuntary participation and violation of animal rights since the animal was taken away from their parents from a very young age. And when he was released back into the public, he actually had some immune system problems since he was kept in a closed environment with the kid for a very long time. Therefore, after considering all these ethical constraints, the experiment was stopped very early.
Okay, tell me about your second object.
So my second object is the ecology, concept, and prophylaxis of childbed fever, and it's by Stimulus. So this thesis of his was released in 1961, and it's about how he conducted some experiment in a hospital in Vienna. So he realized that people are getting sick not because of miasma theory, it's more because of people are coming in contact with the patients and they're not doing some basic hygiene such as hand hygiene or sanitation. But however, his idea was shot down really quick because of the over-reliance on miasma theory. People believe in miasma theory more, and therefore people started building evidence on miasma theory, and they're not really open up to listening to new theories. Also, Samuels, he's not really famous, and he doesn't really have a deep precision in the medical field. Therefore, people don't really believe him. And there's a famous pathologist called Rudolph. He come out and dismiss the idea, and other scientists basically jump on the bandwagon and then start dismissing his idea as well. Therefore, his idea was never released to the public, and his research was stopped due to people dismissing him, and he died in a mental hospital because of the trauma he faced. Therefore, the knowledge was not really acquired by the public until very later on, and also his production of knowledge was stopped.
Okay, all right. Tell me about your third object.
So the third object is a catalog of banned books, and it is released by the Taiwanese government. So during martial law, the government basically banned citizens acquiring knowledge from books with certain topics such as communism, China, Japan, and criticism of the government. So, and they also blacklist a lot of translators and authors who are against the government. For example, one of the books mentioned in this subject is Stray Birds by Tagore. However, the book was banned to be published in Taiwan because the author supported the independence of India, and also the translator is a supporter of the Chinese government. Therefore, their ideology does not really align, so the books was banned. And by banning the books, they uses a lot of methods such as enforcing punishment onto people. So and they will face a lot of harsh punishments like death penalty or torture. So people don't really want to pursue knowledge. Also, there's a law called Regulation on Prosecution of Bandits Spies during the rebellion period. So basically, if you snitch on other people about if they want to read the books mentioned, they'll be punished and you'll get rewards. So people don't really want to be punished. Also, the availability of book was lessened because you can't really get those books from the library or any public places, except in illegal ways. Therefore, a lot of knowledge was constrained due to that.
All right, great.
So Beatrice, I see that your first object is the qipao.
Yeah.
And your prompt is, what is the relationship between knowledge and culture?
Yeah.
What does this dress have to do with helping us to understand this question between knowledge and culture?
Well, as you can see, like the qipao is the culture, and because the knowledge here, I would say, is a representative of the gender equality connected to qipao, is because that, as you can see, that before 1920s, that actually the gender equality have not been looked for by China, but because of later on, after 1920s, like more and more Western knowledge are coming into China. Also, like the gender equality are one of them. So therefore, women are being more freedom. They have more freedom in their appearances. Like qipao is one of them, because as you can see from the evolution, that this one is the earliest style of the fit that women they would wear. Like there is hand style, like it's more loose, and it is like two shirt and skirts. But later on, because of the westernization, so they actually wear it to make it more fit, like this one. And then because of the gender equality, because of the influence of the westernization. So the gender equality, actually women are being more freedom in their dressing. And as you can see that it can also combine to the Western, because as you can see from this is actually more traditional Chinese, but this one is actually more fit and it has like more influence by the West.
So in the context of the Chinese culture, where women were dressed very differently, they have this new knowledge of gender equality coming in from the outside world. What about the qipao shows the gender equality? Why is this an expression of this new knowledge?
It is an expression of the new knowledge because actually, like in the traditional Chinese, they actually are being forced to wear some of the traditional clothing like qipao. Not actually qipao, but the hand style. But because of later on the qipao, but because later on they are being more freedom, so they can choose whatever they want to wear. And because of this combination with the westernization, so more and more people starting to wear qipao in China. So it also, so I think it actually related to my prompt, which is the knowledge and culture.
So the knowledge that they're getting is that women can have the choice to wear whatever they want, and rather than wearing these loose-fitting, multi-layered clothing, they're wearing this maybe perhaps more attractive single-piece, tighter clothing. That's what the women want to wear, and so they're using that knowledge to kind of change the culture.
Yeah.
Okay, Beatrice, great job. Thank you very much. All right, I'm here with my TOK student, Katie, and she has 3 objects that are supposed to be related to: is knowledge inevitable in the production? Is culture?
Is bias, sorry.
Okay. Is bias inevitable in the production of knowledge? And down here we have a little boy and a little girl. Could you explain what is this object about?
Yeah, this is a Twitter's post. I see Twitter, and it is this is a link that's connected to a Stanford University professor study about boys and girls' mind on studying science and math. And then because it is commonly well known that how boys are better than girls in the field of mathematics and science. But for this professor, his study shows that how the brain itself does not distinguish the boys and girls' ability in studying math and science, but then it is our society's expectation on them, and then how we're telling them that boys may be better in mathematics, in calculation, leading to this results like later on.
Do you think then that the bias is in the way that people see the boys and the girls, and that the research supports that they actually are, that bias maybe is not inevitable?
Yeah.
Like, the problem is our bias in the production of knowledge, but science says that actually it's not their brains.
Science says that the brain, like our brain and our body itself, does not distinguish our ability in studying math and science.
Okay.
So, but like statistics show that generally boys,
right.
Yeah,
this is well known.
Larger number of boys study math and science, and rather than girls. But what formed this, the professor said, is because how parents and the teachers are constantly giving them the idea that girls may do not as good as boys within their in the area of math, and so later on, just like slowly leading to larger amounts of boys in this field.
Okay, so in this case, the knowledge might be who is better at math.
So my answer of this question is bias is never avoidable, because just this small bias can lead to this like large results. Right now, just a small bias of how boys can be better at math and science, leading to how larger amounts of boys are studying in this area right now.
Okay.
And boys and girls do not feel confident in this area.
So it's hard to avoid this bias. It's kind of like stuck in our culture at this point.
Yeah.
We always just think boys are going to be better.
Yeah.
Science may say not necessarily, but it's very hard to change that.
Yeah.
So it may be in some sense inevitable.
Yeah.
All right, Katie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
那欢迎来到我们中文 TOK 的展场。我们这一次的主题呢，就是你可以看到谁刷了 TOK。原因是因为我们的 IA 是要回答35个 IA prompt， 就是知识问题。那我们的学生呢，借由3个物件回答他们所选择的知识问题，去展现他们对于 TOK 的理解跟学习成果。那现在我们就来听听看学习者怎么样在这个展览的过程当中去展现他们对 TOK 的理解。跟着我一起来。好，来就把时间交给我们的第一位
好，那我这次所选择的 IA 的题目是目前的知识是怎样与时俱进的。那我第一个物件是5楼学校实验室的一个显微镜的。那这个显微镜在10年级的这个生物实验中帮助我们非常多，像是非常多实验，像是什么植物的表皮细胞的观察，还有一些看这种微生物的一些实验观察。那在过去呢，没有这个显微镜的时候，许多科学家他们是没有办法看到那种纳米级的这种生物。那在这个科技的进步使得越来越多就是正确的知识取代旧的知识，像是以前呢，他们传统显微镜看到的一个细胞是死的细胞，或甚至是细胞壁，但是当时的科学家并不知道这个知识。那在近年来呢，因为科技的发达，所以呢，越来越多科学家就是对于细胞有越来越多的研究，所以有越来越完整的知识被探究，所以呢，这些新的知识就逐渐取代过去这个旧的知识。那在第二个物件呢，我选择的是这个特斯拉的这个 Instagram 的贴文。那在这个贴文中呢，他们的这个屋顶呢是用太阳能板做的。那这个太阳能板做还有配置一个 Power Wall， 也是他们最近就是近年来在发展的一个技术。那在过去就是地球暖化还没有出现的时候，我们并没有在思考要怎么减少这些碳足迹以及二氧化碳的生成，所以呢，我们并没有在思考我们买东西的时候要有这个环保的一个核心概念。但是因为近年来这个地球暖化在就是上升，然后也越来越多的政府意识到我们需要运用再生能源，现在联合国政府他们开始定了一个就是这个干净的能源为他们一个永续发展的目标，所以呢，越来越多政府有开始跟进的制度呢，人们也开始有新的观点来跟进，他们就认为说我们买东西的时候应该要选择的是环保的产品，不是那些就是方便使用的产品，所以呢，开始商家就来就是发展更多有绿能科技的一个产品，所以在绿能科技这方面的知识呢，我们就越来越多，就是有越来越完整的知识出现，像是特斯拉他们就是其中一个，因为他们在太阳能电这个发展的知识就越来越完整的出现。那接下来第三个物件呢，我用的是这个 TOK 的梗图。那 TOK 梗图这个是在嘲讽就是那些相信地平说的人，他们认为说地球就是圆的而不是平的。那在古文明时代呢，我们从地平说的一个演变，我们可以看到在古文明时代说他们是依照宗教来相信说地平说是这个真理，但是到了中世纪呢，因为麦哲伦环绕了地球一圈，所以他们开始就是证明出地球就是圆的，所以地平说逐渐取代了地平说。但是到了近期呢，越来越多高知识分子认为他们不甘愿就是被这个政府的知识来洗脑，然后他们也越来越觉得说，就是 NASA 在洗脑人们。那南极其实是围绕在地球的一圈的，所以其实地球是平的，因为他们不甘愿被这个课本的知识所洗脑。那从这个过去到现在的演变中，我们可以看到呢，这个知识呢开始逐渐掺杂了许多的伪科学，并且因为社群软体的更新，所以呢，他们就是透过 YouTube、透过抖音呢，他们就是让越来越多对于地缘说没有钻研的人可以来轻易相信说地平说是一个真理。所以透过科技的帮助呢，在让这个知识在近年来中增加越来越多的伪科学。那这些伪科学呢，就是也开始让阴谋论有一个大量的兴起。好，谢谢，这是我以上的这个 IA 的论述。
好，你会看到我们中文 TOK 的同学呢，他们都有一个这样子的名牌。那这样子的名牌呢，基本上是我们曹伟霆同学设计的。然后这个其实是来自于我们课堂上面呢，在讲语言跟标签的一个内容。那接着呢，我们就要到李丽恩同学的这一个展区，然后请他来跟我们分享确定性这个东西是怎么达到的。好，来把时间交给丽恩。
就是这个是我的题目是在何种程度上确定性可以达到，然后我有3个物件分别达到不同程度的确定性。第一个是在公立的高一课本上面的数学课本上面的对于无理数的一个证明题，然后它讨论到了如果是无理数跟有理数这种非黑即白的情况下，我们要达到一定程度的确定性，我们需要透过反证法。反证法是什么呢？反证法就是我如果要证明根号20， 是无理数的话，我要先假设它是有理数，然后以它是有理数的前提来做推演，然后我到后面就会发现，计算到后面就会发现它是有理数这个过程违背了其中的道理，所以就会有办法证明说，哦，它不是有理数，代表呢它是无理数。所以我们可以讨论到说，人其实在生活中也常常透过这种类似的方法，像是说，如果我煮泡面的时候，我要确定泡面有没有熟的时候，我可能会先想过说，如果泡面没有熟的话，泡面会有很硬的部分，所以如果泡面没有硬块，就代表已经煮开了，就是透过这种类似反证法的思维来达到一定程度的确定性。所以我做的结论是说，如果在非黑即白的情况下，只有二分法，就是没有第三种情况，没有模糊地带，没有中间地带的情况下，如果是非黑即白的情况的话，我们是有办法达到一定程度的确定性，就是100%的确定性。如果我成功证明说它不属于一边，就代表它属于另外一边，所以在这个情况下，几乎100%确定性是可以被达到的。然后第二个我选择的物件是COVID-19 的那个病毒的潜伏期。然后呢，这是做的一个统计，就是他们总共采了1万个那个 participant， 然后呢，他就来进行统计上面的讨论。因为在我们如果要做一个 survey 的时候，我们可能要做一个 research 的时候，我们没有办法涵盖全部的，就是 population， 就是譬如说，如果我要找就是可能全台湾的身高，我没有办法调查每一个人的身高，所以我只能用透过统计的方式来达到确定性。所以在如果我已经没有办法达到100%的确定性的前提下，我们要达到一定的程度的确定性是可以透过统计来达到的。所以我就提到了一个信赖区间，就是我们在学统计的时候有一个是叫 normal distribution， 信赖区间有办法涵盖95%的范围，所以我们透过涵盖95%，然后剔除掉那种可能极少数的一些极端的参数的话，我们就有办法做出一定程度的确定性。就是我们虽然没有100%确定，但是我们可以达到一定程度的确定性。然后第三个是在心理学课的时候，老师有给我们的看了一个影片，然后这影片很有趣，它里面的时候，他这个男生念了10几个有关睡眠的单字，然后他结束的时候要我们把那个单字写下来，结果很多人都在那个单字里面写了 sleep， 就是睡觉，然后但是其实 sleep 没有在那个单字的列里面出现，然后所以我们就可以看到，其实记忆其实是很容易被诱导的。然后但是在记忆很容易被诱导的时候，像是目击者的证词要怎么办？就是我们需要在一个不确定的情况下，要达到一定的程度确定性，因为可能它需要目击者证词，如果在没有监视器的情况下，它是非常重要的。所以我们要怎么达到一定程度的确定性呢？就是心理学家在这种目击者的案件中，其实扮演很重要的角色。就是心理学家可能会透过测试啊，就是心理测试或行为测试，来确定说他是不是真的有看到这类的事情，就透过他的行为来分析这样子。所以我们可以做的结论是在一个很难达到确定性的情况下，透过专业知识的辅助，还有鉴定的话，有办法达到一定程度的确定性。谢谢。
OK， 最后一个同学呢，我们就请来听听看价值观怎么影响我们产生知识。好，威廉，请把握时间。
好，所以我的3个物件是，第一个是我的手机，然后第二个是我常用的那个 App， 就是 Uber Eats， 然后第三个是在讲，有一个 article， 它是在讲说，在以前的时代，曾经有医生说过吸烟对身体是好的。然后我所选择这3个物件原因，我第一个物件是在讲说，我为什么会认为 Apple 的手机会是最好的。那其实我曾经以前是用过其他牌子的手机，那其实我用完其他牌子的手机，我也知道说 Apple 的手机比较贵，功能也不一定比较好。但是我之所以会选择 Apple 的手机呢，然后买了那么多台，就是因为我知道这个手机它是最多人会使用的，然后包含很多明星，然后科技专家他们都会选择使用 Apple 的手机，然后这才会影响到我所选择 Apple 的手机，所以这可以显现出我所选择的产品不一定是功能真的好，而是我会被同侪影响。第二个物件是在讲说Uber Eats 这个软体它是怎么形成的。那其实就是因为在我们人们的需求下，然后以及科技的进步下，这个软体才会形成。那我们的需求是什么？在现在社会中，越来越多人讲究效率这个东西，所以人们帮我去买，然后我们只要进行点餐，然后可能付个10%、20%的小费，就可以让我们在短时间内得到我们想要的食品，然后可以节省掉 要很多时间。那这就是为什么现代社会中会有这样的软体产生。那也因为科技的进步下，这个软体才能够展现的这么的发达。然后最后一个是在讲说，在19世纪时期，曾经有那个专家学者有展现出吸烟对身体是好的数据。那其实，在我们的认知中，吸烟对身体一定是不好的。但是当时烟厂为了让那个人们愿意相信吸烟对身体不会是不好的，甚至是好的，所以他们以贿赂的方式付那个化学家或者是实验家他们大量的经费，然后拜托他们那个产生出吸烟对身体是好的数据，然后以让人民相信吸烟对身体是好的。那当时也因为那个社交软体或者是网络的串流媒体不是那么的发达，所以人们也会短暂的在当时相信吸烟对身体是好的。那以上这就是我的3个物件。